following podcast contains spoilers and words like gee, whiz, and gosh darn it. We watch a thing. We watch a thing. Hello everybody and welcome back to We Watched a Thing. This week, once again, I'm lucky enough to be joined by a patron of the show. Top level patrons get to come on as a guest, and last time this gentleman came on, he chose Tarsem Singh's first film, The Fall. And this week we're continuing. We're continuing with the Tarsem run, aren't we, mate?
We did. Although last was The Cell.
Yeah, COVID brain. I'll fix that in post.
Fix everything in post.
How you been, mate? What have you been up to?
Dealing with floods. Thankfully not personally, but there's a little bit of damp around New South Wales at the moment, as you might have heard.
Yes.
But no, good, healthy, happy.
Nice. Well, let's get right into it then. The Fall is a 2006 adventure fantasy film directed and co-written by Tarsem Singh. It stars Lee Pace, Catinca Untaru, and Justine Waddell. And what is it about, Dave?
Well, it's a story about the art of storytelling, Billy.
Yes, I love that that's how you described it. That's exactly what I would have said.
It's I'll be a little bit more straightforward. It follows a young girl named Alexandria who is in a hospital early in the 1920, something like that. And she's in a hospital with a broken arm that she suffered falling while picking oranges, and encounters a bedridden stuntman who was injured on the set of a film. And he proceeds to regale her with stories, much in the way Peter Falk regales a young Fred Savage.
I know, it felt very reminiscent to that, actually.
There's a really similar sort of corollary between the two in that framing structure.
Yeah, I think obviously this has a lot more to the framing story.
Yeah.
This is more than just him telling her stories, but I agree with you. I think this is a film about... That's what I love about this film. As a film geek and as a fan of stories in general... This is just a love letter from start to finish to film and filmmaking and storytelling. It's fucking
as
phenomenal.
Shrek would say, it's got layers like an onion.
Yeah, I can't believe I'd never heard of this film. I'd literally never even heard of it.
It's one of those things. You go onto IMDb or whatever, and it's just a whole bunch of 5-star reviews from a handful of people who say it's their favourite thing of all time, and then there's no one. I think it was in an interview with Ebert years and years ago, Tarsem said there's 3 versions of any story. There's the version that the storyteller tells, there's the version that the audience hears, and then there's the version that audience retells to other people.
That is fucking beautiful.
And I think that nails this film completely, because what Roy is telling Alexandria is not what she's picturing in a lot of ways. She's hearing the words and using her frame of reference to sort of populate what's happening. And there's a lot of disconnect there. His story is being drawn from his experience. And so when he talks about an Indian and his squaw and his wigwam, she pictures an Indian from India.
Yeah.
Because that's her frame of reference. And it's just chock full of stuff like that. There's so much going on. It's really quite incredible.
It is. And we spoke about Tarsem's visual style with The Cell. This, to me, one-ups it 100%.
Yeah.
The visual language in this film is gorgeous. And I could almost happily take either the framing story or the told story in this film and watch just that on its own. I think they both have such a distinct visual look to them, which works so well for what the story itself is doing. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah. And he'll never watch it because there's a child, but I would challenge Topher to find fault with Alexandria as a child performance, because she is a delight.
I mean, yes, I was going to say, she might be the best child performance I've ever seen.
Mm.
And I looked her up.
Only
as far
film
as
she's
I
ever
can
done.
tell, she's done nothing else since. She really is just a Romanian-born child that they just kind of pulled in to act in this film, and she had such heart. It's crazy.
And I think there's a lesson in this to other directors who have children in their films, because I'm usually with Topher, the child actors suck. They're usually awful. Even our beloved Jurassic Park.
Oh, don't you besmirch Jurassic Park. Oh, no, how dare you.
I like them, and particularly that the boy has some great lines, but they're not good.
Oh, okay, all right.
The lesson for directors.
Where are you on Haley Joel Osment?
I would need to watch Sixth Sense. I haven't seen that since it came out because I'm just such an avid disliker of fucking M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. I can't stand the pretentious twat. So I need to go back and watch it because I did like that film. In fact, I liked all these films up to The Village, including The Village. But
yeah, right.
Since then, woof. Apart from Split. Split was good.
Yeah.
But no, what I was going to say, a lesson to directors is don't give children that age a script.
Yep.
She didn't have a script. She ad-libbed everything she did in that film, and he built the scenes around what she said.
Right.
And that's why
I
she's
didn't
so
know that,
natural.
but that is genius. Yeah. Yeah. She's incredibly natural.
She had no idea, for example, that Lee Pace could walk. Tarsem kept him in the bed he filmed the hospital stuff first.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this production because it's almost a mythic the way he created this film over 6 years. But he filmed the hospital stuff first in, I think, South Africa in one block.
Yeah.
And
I saw the list of countries this film was filmed in.
I think like there's
20 or something. That's
countries.
insane.
But yeah, so this I think it was a mental hospital in South Africa that he filmed all the hospital stuff up front as one shoot for over 3-4 weeks or something. She couldn't speak any English when they started,
right?
And apparently she's so sharp. She started learning English, but she was learning it with an Indian accent because she was listening to Tarsem. So he had to put more Romanians around her to try and de-accent her. But no one on set knew Lee Pace could walk. He kept Lee Pace in bed the entire time so it didn't confuse Catinca, because 6 years old, she's the whole process of making a movie was probably a bit foreign because she'd never done it before. So she didn't know he could walk. Apparently one of the makeup people saw Lee Pace stand up and almost fainted at one point. But he gave Catinca the framework of this is what's happening. And that's why a lot of their stuff is with sheets sort of around his bed, so she didn't see the cameras or anything, and the crew wasn't distracted. Yeah. And she would do whatever she did. And Lee Pace would sort of respond to it, knowing the direction that the scene needed to take. So he was sort of ad-libbing a fair bit as well.
Yeah.
And then things would happen and Tarsem would just build the movie around them. Apparently when he was writing it, he didn't have a script when they started filming because he wanted the child's imagination to help guide the story. So the bit where he writes out morphine and does kind of the curly E and she thinks it's a 3, that was just her misreading. That wasn't scripted. And then Tarsem just had her get 3 pills and he just added that in based on her thinking it was a 3. And that apparently that was sort of all the way through was sort of stuff like that where he would just sort of shape things so that nothing that she was saying was rehearsed or she was trying to remember. She was just responding to things in her sort of stilted, half-understood English.
Yeah.
And, he would sort of build the scenes around it, which is just an astonishing way to approach it.
Well, that's just genius filmmaking. I think that's a lesson that people can learn as well from something like that is, the value of improvisation and from allowing your actors to have an input to story. It doesn't even need to be to this level necessarily.
No, but I mean, half the problem with child actors is they're not natural because they're trying to remember a line.
Yeah, exactly.
If you let them just kind of say stuff and then build around it, it's always going to be a more natural delivery.
I mean, this okay, to be fair, that won't work with every film because some films do have a tighter structure, but this is the perfect film to play with filmmaking like that because the storytelling, it feels like the fun of someone making up a story on the spot. Like, that's the joy of this film. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mentioned that the hospital stuff was up front. This, and I remember you saying, and I think, and I hate to draw a connection between this and Moonfall, but I think it was Moonfall where you said, oh, weirdly enough, it's an independent film.
Yes.
Which this is as well. Tarsem funded the entire thing himself because no one would give him money for it. And that's why it took him something like 6 years to make it because he did the hospital shit up front and then he would, because he was in demand as a commercial maker, he would take jobs in the countries where he wanted to shoot stuff for the fall. And so he would, take a job in, United Arab Emirates or in Romania or in any one of the other 32 countries that he filmed in. And when he finished the commercial shoot, he would just pay the crew an extra couple of weeks and go and film in whatever weird-ass location he wanted for a scene for the fall.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't have Alexandria in most of it. There's only a couple of locations right towards the end where she sort of appears as the mini bandit.
Yeah.
Because obviously you can't fly a 6-year-old all over the world. But and that's how he funded it. He'd take a commercial job.
Yeah.
And save money by just keeping the same crew, save on travel costs and all of the, stuff that normally makes a movie like this really expensive.
Yeah.
And so it took him, 6 years or whatever it was to piece all of these incredible, because he claimed that there's apparently no CG in this at all. There's no effect shots in the entire film. It's all locations and costuming and everything else. And he just, I don't know, give award, all the awards to whoever the location scout was, because there's some just unearthly places that you can't really believe are real.
Yeah, it's stunning. The look of this film is just beautiful. It reminded me of one of my favorite old adventure films, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Just the location work and everything. Were you gonna laugh because that's a bad movie?
Hell no. That's one of Harryhausen's, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely is. Topher hated it when I made
bad word said about Harryhausen.
Because it reminded me of that, just the beautiful location work in this film. And you can tell that there's not a CG shot in this film, and fuck, it adds to it. And, it's funny because I did have that thought in the back of my head. Like, when I first started doing visual effects and working for houses, I was myself surprised at how much VFX work there is these days, and the majority of
I've heard you say most of it's stuff you don't notice. It's just kind of extending the sightline and
exactly. I'll never forget one of my first days on the job was with Animal Logic in Sydney, the company who did Great Gatsby. Not long before I had worked with them, and they were showing their reel
Baz
and about Baz Luhrmann. They were showing their reel and showing us how that wasn't a real mansion at all. It was all
I remember saying something about that. Yeah, incredible.
And because they were saying, because CG is cheaper. It's cheaper to CG a background these days than it is to build a physical location. And I had that in my mind the whole time I was watching this film, and the stunning locations and set pieces and landscapes. And it's like, it makes absolute sense that was funded by commercial jobs, because I don't know how else you could do it. It looks beautiful.
It makes me want to travel.
Yeah.
Because there's some of the locations, they're all breathtaking. The dunes, some of those massive dunes where the camera's seemingly about 2 kilometers away. You've just got these tiny figures in this immense lens. It's all amazing. But there's one, I think it's when they get close to Odious' place, and there's almost this MC Escher building of staircases all going in different directions, and they've got people running up all of them. And you'd swear that's got to be one guy on a staircase.
Yeah.
And then CG. But it's not. That's actually a place that is built like that. And it's like, holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's absolutely gorgeous. You know, some of the large kind of temples and stuff that are used later in the film, just fucking beautiful.
And I love this. He wanted, because of the desert's all really orange and it's all really warm colours, he wanted that city to be really blue.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, because it's in the desert and all the houses were faded and everything. So apparently he gave the entire place blue paint and they all painted their houses. So
wow.
you've got this sea of blue houses because he just gave them paint and said, here you go, paint your house.
See, that's the kind of filmmaking stories that I just love to hear. That kind of real guerrilla filmmaking. We'll just get this town to paint their houses blue.
We can't afford CG. We're just going to have to make do. We want the houses blue. How do you normally make a house blue?
That's fucking brilliant. Oh man, that's so good. You know who we haven't really touched on yet, as far as talking about the acting goes. Lee Pace is also incredible in this film. And I did not know that so much of this film was improvised, but fuck, that just gives you an even deeper level of respect for him to work so closely with this 6-year-old and get that before, obviously Tarsem did a lot, but let's face it.
Oh, it's the two of them. Their chemistry is amazing.
Absolutely. This film hangs on the chemistry and relationship between those two. Like, you believe it's real.
And he's got to do some pretty adult stuff emotionally as it goes a bit further on, when he sort of comes clean about the fact that he was just manipulating her to get morphine and
but to kill himself basically.
and I mean she may not have understood half of what was going on, but at that age, but that's some raw stuff when he's breaking down and you can tell that he's suicidal, and that then filters into the story and he starts killing off all the characters because he wants to die. And It's some rough stuff I can imagine to do when you're acting against a 6-year-old who doesn't speak a whole lot of English as well.
Yeah, and it's so grim, but there's something. Maybe it's just my love of storytelling, but there's something so uplifting in this film as well. I think that by the end you're almost crying happy tears, almost and that almost final moment where they're in the hospital and they're playing his film and he's realizing that like his big jump, the bit that landed him in hospital and everything, didn't even make the film. There's another stuntman, it's not him. It just doesn't happen.
Yep.
And there's something in his face that I don't know. It's almost beautiful for some reason.
Yeah, it's like he's sort of. I've gone as low as a human can go and become suicidal and everything, and it was all for nothing. Yeah. I've been fretting over something that never even made it to the screen. What an idiot I am.
Yeah, it's really touching in those moments. Yeah.
I love the and I don't think I even picked it up the first time I watched it, because I was much like with The Cell the first time, you just kind of agog at the visual tapestry of the whole thing, but the way his story is just chock full of what he, at that point in time, would have been surrounded by, because he's stuck in a bed. He can't go anywhere. He's been there for weeks. All he's got is newspapers and what people tell him. So he's got stuff from the time. So you've got Darwin and his monkeys Wallace, and that's George. I think it's George Wallace, the one who was butting heads with Darwin over who actually came up with evolution first.
Yeah, right. Yep.
You've got Otobengu, the freed slave, who was, and I had to look this up because I'd heard it referred to in an interview ages ago, but apparently at that time there was a African freed slave, I think, who was being paraded around in a zoo with a bow and arrow, and was sort of all over the news, and come and see the savage native sort of thing. So you've got a freed slave with a bow and arrow, and it's all this stuff that he would have pulled out of, the newspapers that he was exposed to, and he's got an Indian because he's 50% of all the movies were Westerns back then, so he's got Indians on the brain. And then you've got her hearing those words and then populating it visually with her own stuff. So the Indian becomes an Indian, like we said, but all of the characters are people she knows from around the hospital because she can't go anywhere either. She's been stuck there for weeks with her broken arm. So you've got the doctor and you've got the orderly as Darwin and you've got the ice delivery guy as the slave and and that wonderful bit where she says, "Why has the bandit got a Spanish accent?" And she's like, "Oh, he's your father." It's like, but what did she say? My father's dead or whatever. And then suddenly it's Lee Pace as the bandit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's genius. And I mean that supporting cast are all fantastic as well. Those players as the other members of this group.
It's wonderful considering, I mean, within the framework of the story, obviously they've got sort of fairly two-dimensional, but they're really clearly defined characters. You've got the explosives guy, you've got Darwin. But in the hospital, everyone has a character. Even if they, some of them only have one line, or you've got old dentures guy who doesn't really have any lines, but he's still got personality. He's still a character. And particularly the interactions with Alexandria, I think, are just delightful from all of them.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, the ice guy who's always telling her not to lick the ice. It's brilliant. Like a hospital is the last place you should be licking ice.
Oh yeah, all I can think of when I see that block of ice is Million Ways to Die in the West, the Seth MacFarlane film.
Yeah,
where the giant block of ice is being delivered to the western town, it falls and crushes the guy's head, and then the next day they're all having ice, and Seth MacFarlane's like, "They used the ice."
I think that was an underrated film. I really
love it.
dig Seth MacFarlane.
I think it's a great comedy. I
think
he's
a very clever man.
Yeah, no, 100%. Screw the naysayers. It's damn funny. I mean, there's always my beloved Eiko Ishioka. I reckon this is possibly her best work costume-wise, up there with Mirror Mirror. I think some of the stuff is just incredible. There's that one scene, and I think it's where the bandit discovers that his brother, the Blue Bandit's been killed, and there is that got to be 50-foot tall curtain in the middle of the desert that just the blood from the body just starts slowly seeping up it and gets 2-3 stories up it. And to think it's all practical, incredible stuff. It's such a striking image.
I agree. I watched this film first before I watched The Cell, and the reason I did that actually is because I thought I would like this less. I don't know why. I knew nothing about it. I just thought, I'll get this out of the way, and and then I'll watch The Cell.
Fucking Powell and his stupid movie.
No, I mean you've never steered us right. I've loved every Patreon pick you've come to the show with, which is not something Topher could say because from memory he hasn't. But
don't even bring up Topher's response.
But yeah, I loved this movie. I was so into it. I mean, from the first minute where you have the black and white slow-mo footage of
how
the
gorgeous is that intro, by the way. I should have mentioned it. It's beautiful.
It's just stunning. And I don't think words can describe how slow-mo that is. I actually, out of curiosity, I bumped it up to double speed for a couple of shots, and it was still not real time. Wow. So it's like it's slower than 200%. Yeah, it's very, very slow, and yet it's not boring. Which is I don't know how Tarsem pulled that off. This sequence is maybe 4 minutes long. It's just black and white slow-mo shots of him falling in and people pulling
and the
him
weird
up
thing. The weird thing is, you don't know me personally, I had no idea what was happening in it. It was just beautiful images. It wasn't until later in the film that I was able to sort of mentally backtrack and go, oh, that was the accident, that was him falling, and that was the horse, and it all made sense. But at the time, it's just like this visual love letter to silent film.
Yes.
With no story, which makes it all the more incredible that you're sort of riveted to it because you don't even know what's going on.
Exactly. It is such a perfect way to start this film, I think.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. What is The Fall?
Like what does the title allude to? I mean, fuck, that's an interesting question, isn't it? You could dig into that for hours.
Because she fell and broke her arm and picking oranges. He fell off with the horse and the thing.
Yeah.
He fell into addiction. He fell from grace. He fell...
I know, there's so many falls. They're falling all over the joint. Fucking, they need new shoes or something. Yeah, I had the exact same thought while watching it, and I thought I should try come up with an answer, and I couldn't. Like, I think, and I think it's almost obvious to say, oh, well, it's a metaphorical fall, like they're falling emotionally as much as they are physically there. But I don't know how I could describe it. What about you? Do you have an answer?
No. It was just it occurred to me while watching it. One thing we haven't touched on is Colin Watkinson, the cinematographer.
Oh, yeah. Well,
wow.
Yes. Okay.
And this is a guy who, again, like with Ishioka, you would think, based on the quality of this, because this is some stunning shit, he would be a name like, Deakins or Greg Fraser or one of these people that's, it's, top of the heap. But he's not done a lot. He's done some other stuff with Tarsem. He did, I know he did Tarsem's Wizard of Oz miniseries, Emerald City, which is bloody good also, with Vinny D'Onofrio as the wizard.
I didn't realise that was Tarsem. Okay, I have seen that.
So, yeah, if you go back and watch that again, having seen some of Tarsem's, it's really, really apparent. But other than that, the only thing, because I did look him up, because I thought, I assumed it was going to be a big name cinematographer. The only other thing, and I'm the only person who's a fan of this, is the never picked up pilot for the Wonder Woman TV series with Adrian Palicki as Wonder Woman and Carrie Elway's in it.
I never saw that. That was...
fuck, I loved it.
It was written by the Ally McBeal guy, right?
I don't know. Could have been. Maybe.
Yeah, right. Okay. I remember that being a big thing at the time.
I loved it. I mean, it's hard to look at it without it seeming a little bit sort of campy compared to Gal Gadot and everything now, but it was fabulous stuff. And Adrian Palicki, I'll watch Adrian Palicki peeling potatoes. I couldn't care less. But yeah, that was the only other thing that jumped out at me. I think he did a few episodes of Handmaid's Tale, but not a great deal else. I mean, so
Handmaid's Tale is, that is a gorgeous looking fucking show right there. But the cinematography in that is genius. Like the symbolism that's in almost every shot of that show.
Oh, it's just
But
no other features. So unless he's a prick that no one likes and no one wants to work with him. It was really surprising because you would think there's your show reel.
Oh,
some of those shots in the desert, boom. Oh, that's your CV right there.
It's absolutely gorgeous. It really is. So all in all, how are you scoring The Fall?
Oh, it's a 10. It's one of my few automatic 5 out of 5s on Letterboxd. Yeah. I just can't fault it. I think it's unique. It's fabulous stuff.
Yeah, I'm a 9. I adored this film from start to finish, which, as I said, I don't know why, but I wasn't expecting to. For some reason, maybe it was the fact that I'd never heard of it at all.
Well, there's no indication what it's about from
that's
the posters.
Right, yeah.
I mean, the posters look good. There's, I think, one poster that would make you want to see it, which is the desert with that 40-story curtain with the blood seeping up it and just some tiny characters, and that to me looks really striking.
Yeah.
But most of the marketing was, from memory, centered around close-ups of the bandit face with the mask. And the mask close-up looks a little bit goofy. So you
to me, there's no reason that this film shouldn't have been a giant hit. like you kind of alluded to The Princess Bride at the start, and I think the correlations between these two films go deeper than just the framing device, honestly. Like, I think even just the nature of the story itself, the adventure, the fun of
and
this
the way
film.
the story is shaped by the listener as well. So you've got Fred Savage going, "Tell it right, you're getting and Alexandria does much the same thing. Why are you killing all the people? Why are you making it so sad?
And it's amazing how much fun this film is able to be, even though it is at times quite grim.
And it's all her, because the whole film really is. It's Lee Pace isn't the main character. The whole thing's through Alexandria's eyes. So you've got all of these moments of sort of childlike wonder. So very early on, one of those silent film love letter moments where you get that camera obscura thing with the horse through the keyhole projected onto the upside down on the wall. And then later you've got her doing shadow puppetry on the wall. All these little moments of sort of childlike wonder and, the fact that she gets busted throwing oranges at the nuns. And it's all of those little bits that kind of take away from or balance out the fact of the setting and, is he crippled for life, and the old dude in the bed next to them dies, and his addiction and all. That's all grim stuff. But then you've got this child who doesn't get any of that because she's down at child height and with a child's perception, and that's all completely washes over her. She's just going around with a little box of happiness and
licking ice.
Licking ice and throwing oranges at nuns, as you do.
As you do. I mean, look, we were all children once. We licked some ice. We pelted some nuns with fruit.
Have you got a favourite moment?
I think towards the end of the film where she becomes the bandit is very, very fun.
Where she saves them, where they're all captive.
Yeah. I don't know if I could say I had a favourite moment. Honestly, the striking images of the first couple of minutes sucked me in. Like, if I was to say my favourite sequence, it would be that opening. And then the first
black and white, or the Alexander the Great
black and white,
right?
But then also the first moment he starts telling the epic, and you see these five characters come together. Darwin, the Indian, the bandit. There's something beautiful about the cinematography in that moment as well.
That reminds me, of all of the incredible stuff, the bit that most impressed me when I heard there was no CG is the swimming fucking elephants.
I forgot about that.
Ride a swimming elephant.
Yeah.
Practical effects, people. Wow. I think my favourite, and I don't know how many times I've seen this now. It's got to be at least 5 or 6 times. My favourite little moment is her saying, "You always stop at the same point where it's very, very beautiful." I just love it.
I mean, I don't think enough can be said about how fantastic she is in this film.
She's a delight.
Really, really just, you care about her so much. So much.
Yeah. Where she thinks that he's died when they're taking the old guy's body out covered, and she thinks it's him. That's just heart-rending when she's running screaming. Wow.
Yeah. Well, patron of the show, David Powell, thank you for once again making me watch an excellent, excellent film.
Zang.
As far as I'm concerned, you've proven your taste. I can't speak for Topher.
What did he hate again? It wasn't Night of the Hunter. He hated something.
I know that he didn't, because Night of the Hunter I gave a 10 to. In fact, I think that was the first appearance of the B Dizzle's Big Call, where I said it was the best film I'd ever seen.
That's right.
And I know that he thought that was very silly.
No, there was something that he really didn't like.
I forget. I
can't remember what it was.
He doesn't like a lot of things. His reasoning for leaving the show is still Jungle Cruise. He still says that was the point for him where he was such a dick. Actually, he was like, I'm not going to watch bad movies anymore. And I was like, well, we don't have to watch stuff like that. Like, it's our show. We can watch whatever we want. We could do The Godfather every week if that's what you want to do.
There's a beautiful joy in watching a movie and then just tearing it a new asshole.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know when this is going to come out. You might have already heard, but we're going to do a marathon of all of Bruce Willis's director. And that was his idea. That's the thing. So he left the show because of Jungle Cruise, but then he's the one who came to me the other week and was like, it would be really
that's
fun.
That's gonna get painful, because the first one or two, you'll be laughing at how bad it is and how much he's phoning it in and how shit it is.
Yeah.
Once you get, because what are there? It's like 9, 10, 11 of the fucking things.
There's 8. Yeah.
Jesus
8,
Christ.
all from 1 year, and each one worse than the last. When I put them in order to try work out, because I said,
they're all sub 4 on IMDb, aren't they?
Yeah, so the highest one is a 4.4.
Christ. For most actors, that'd be like the nadir of their entire career. But no, that's Willie's high point for the year.
Yeah. Oh man, so silly. But so thank you for not only picking a great film but joining me to talk about it. This was so much fun.
Well, whenever we get to it next on the Tarsem journey, we'll have a cannibal in the mix with Armie Hammer.
What's the next one? Is the next one
next is Mirror Mirror?
Mirror. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think I fucked up when I was talking last week. I think I said that was a Cinderella.
Oh, you might have done instead of Snow White.
Snow White. It's Snow White, is it?
Yeah, Julia Roberts is the Wicked Queen, and Phil Collins' delightful daughter Lily Collins is Snow White.
Is it actually good?
I love it. It's my favourite Snow White film ever made.
Okay. Oh well, now I'm excited. Now we've got to bump up that recording schedule.
It's very, very funny, and it looks. I mean, it looks as you would expect. From having seen a couple of his films, it's visually striking.
Yeah.
And very, very funny. Julia Roberts and the Cannibal are both really, really good comic titles.
The Cannibal.
I'm just going to call him Hannibal for the entire thing.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I asked you this last time, but is there anything at all that you want to plug? Anything that you just want to tell the world while you've got a mic in front of you?
Go out and watch Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. If you haven't watched it, I'm rewatching it now, and Jesus, that's a great show.
I haven't seen it,
it's
will add it to my list.
Really good. And I'm talking the recent, not the British Stephen Mangan one that was, I think, only 3 or 4 episodes or something. No, there's 2 seasons of it. It's written and created by Max Landis, who I know is a bit of a persona non grata because he's a horrible human being, but fuck, he's a good writer. It's hilarious. It's surreal. Elijah Wood's he's like Daniel Radcliffe. He could have gone milk the big franchise and do big money stuff, and he's done nothing but weird, obscure, offbeat, Maniac and the US version of what's the bloody Australian dog thing? Wilfred,
yeah, that was a bizarre show actually.
And Dirk Gently is just it's a baller. That's a 5-star show as far as I'm concerned. It just gets better and better. It's funny and it's weird. So go watch that, people.
I'll add it to my list. We've actually been looking for a new show to watch, but because we've been sick, we weren't feeling like getting into anything new.
You've just been watching Friends, haven't you?
Well, we finished Friends last week, and that was when, because we finished
like
that
a warm, comfy blanket.
and when we finished it, we watched the reunion special, and then straight afterwards, it just started playing the pilot again. I'm like,
I loved that reunion special.
me too.
Great.
I thought it was a lot of fun.
I mean, the women all look like waxworks, but. It was just,
Lisa Kudrow is the only woman who has aged gracefully. She's still beautiful.
Courtney
and Matt LeBlanc is just a joy. Matt LeBlanc is just, he seems
all
like
3 of those guys
dude.
I have so much time for.
Yeah, same.
And some of the moments in that reunion, I just found almost brought tears to my eyes. They were so touching when they were walking through the set and stuff, and some of them seeing each other for the first time in like a decade or whatever.
I know, yeah. So anyway, we finished Friends, and now we've just been watching Property Brothers. So we do need a new show to watch. So
you do.
I'll add Dirk Gently to the list.
Yeah, Dirk Gently's good value.
All right. Well, in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with me, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle @wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and I'll catch you next week.
Go watch Dirk Gently.